So the Dhammapada, an interpretation by Sangharakshita. First verse is pairs. Experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If one speaks or acts with an impure mind, suffering follows, even as the cartwheel follows the hoof of the ox drawing the cart. Experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If one speaks or acts with a pure mind, happiness follows, like a shadow that never departs. Those who entertain such thoughts as, he abused me, he beat me, he conquered me, he robbed me, will not still their hatred. Those who do not entertain such thoughts as, he abused me, he beat me, he conquered me, he robbed me, will still their hatred. Not by hatred are hatreds ever pacified here in the world. They are pacified by love. This is the eternal law. Others do not realize that we are all heading for death. Those who do realize it will compose their quarrels. As the wind blows down a weak tree, so Mara overthrows one who lives, seeing the unlovely as lovely, whose senses are uncontrolled, who is immoderate in food, lazy, and of inferior vigour. As the wind does not blow down the rocky mountain peak, so Mara does not overthrow one who lives seeing the unlovely as unlovely, whose senses are controlled, and who is moderate in food, and whose faith and vigour are aroused. He is not worthy of the yellow robe who takes it while still not free from impurity, and lacking in self-restraint and truth. He is worthy of the yellow robe who has made an end to all impurity, who is well established in virtuous conduct, and who is endowed with self-restraint and truth. Those who take the unreal for the real, and who in the real see the unreal, they, wandering in the sphere of wrong thought, will not attain the real. Those who have known the real as the real, and the unreal as the unreal, they, moving in the sphere of right thought, will attain the real. As the rain penetrates the badly thatched house, so lust enters the spiritually undeveloped mind. As the rain does not penetrate into the well-thatched house, so lust does not enter the spiritually well-developed mind. The evildoer grieves in both worlds. He grieves here and he grieves there. He suffers and torments himself, seeing his own foul deeds. The doer of good rejoices in both worlds. He rejoices here and he rejoices there. He rejoices and is glad seeing his own pure deeds. The evildoer burns in both worlds. He burns here and he burns there. He burns with remorse, thinking he has done evil, and he burns with suffering, having gone after death to an evil state. The doer of good delights in both worlds. He delights here and he delights there. He delights in this life, thinking he has done good, and he delights after death, having gone to a state of happiness. He who, for his own benefit, constantly recites the canonical literature, but does not act accordingly, that heedless man, like a cowherd that counts the cows of others, is not enriched by the ascetic life. He who, for his own benefit, recites even a little of the canonical literature, but lives in accordance with his principles, abandoning craving, hatred, and delusion, possessed of right knowledge, with mind well freed, clinging to nothing in this or any other world. He is enriched by the ascetic life. So over to Louise.
Lovely, thank you. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is the way to the immortal, unmindfulness the way to death. Those who are mindful do not die, whereas the unmindful are like the dead. Knowing the distinction of mindfulness, the spiritually mature Panditas rejoice in mindfulness and take delight in the sphere of the noble ones, Aryas. Absorbed in subconscious states, Jhānas, recollected and ever exerting themselves, those wise ones, Dhiras, realize Nirvana, the unsurpassed security. Whoever is energetic, recollected, pure in conduct, considerate, self-restrained, of righteous life and mindful, the glory of such a one waxes exceedingly. By means of energy, mindfulness, self-restraint and control, let the man of understanding, Medavi, make for himself an island that no flood can overwhelm. Out of their evil understanding, the spiritually immature, Balas, abandon themselves to unmindfulness. The man of understanding guards mindfulness as his chief treasure. Do not abandon yourselves to unmindfulness. Have no intimacy with sensuous delights. The mindful person, absorbed in superconscious states, gains ample bliss. As a dweller in the mountains looks down on those who live in the valley, so the spiritually mature person, the hero, free from sorrow, having driven out unmindfulness by means of mindfulness, ascends to the palace of wisdom and looks down at the sorrowful, spiritually immature multitude below. Mindful among the unmindful, wide awake among the sleeping, the man of good understanding forges ahead like a swift horse, outdistancing a feeble hack. By means of mindfulness, Margava, i.e. Indra, attain to the chieftaincy of the gods. Mindfulness is always praised, unmindfulness always despised. The almsman, bhikkhu, who delights in mindfulness and who regards unmindfulness with fear, advances like fire, burning up fetters gross and subtle. The almsman who delights in mindfulness and who regards unmindfulness with fear is not liable to regression. He is in the presence of Nirvana. Over to Lethem.
The mind. As a fletcher straightens the arrow, so the man of understanding makes straight the trembling, unsteady mind, which is difficult to guard and difficult to restrain. As a fish threshes from side to side when taken, from one abode to another and cast on dry land, so the mind throbs and vibrates with the strain as it abandons the domain of Mara. The mind is frivolous and difficult to control, alighting on whatever it pleases. It is good to tame the mind. The tamed mind brings happiness. The mind is extremely subtle and difficult to grasp, alighting on whatever it pleases. Let the man of understanding keep watch over the mind. The guarded mind brings happiness. Far-ranging and lone-faring is the mind, incorporeal and abiding in the cave of the heart. Those who bring it under control are freed from the bonds of Mara. His wisdom does not attain to perfection whose mind is unsettled, who is ignorant of the real truth, the Dharma, and whose faith wavers. There is no fear for someone who is awake, whose mind is uncontaminated by craving, and unperplexed, and who has given up vice and virtue. Perceiving the body to be fragile like a clay pot, and fortifying the mind as though it were a city, with the sword of wisdom make war on Mara. Free from attachment, keep watch over what has been won. Before long, this body, devoid of consciousness, will lie rejected on the ground like a useless faggot. Whatever foe may do to foe, or hater to hater, greater is the harm done to oneself by a wrongly directed mind. Neither mother or father or any other relative can do one as much good as a perfectly directed mind. Now over to Heather.
Chapter 4, Clouds. Who shall conquer the earth and the realm of death with its deities? Who shall make out the well-taught verses of truth as an expert picks flowers? The learner of the transcendental path shall conquer the realm of death with its deities. The learner shall make out the well-taught verses of truth as an expert picks flowers. Seeing the body as froth and thoroughly comprehending its mirrorish nature, let one proceed unseen by the king of death, having broken the flower-tipped arrows of Mara. As a great flood carries away a sleepy village, so death bears off the man who, possessed of longing, plucks only the flowers of existence. The destroyer brings under his sway the man who, possessed by longing, plucks only the flowers of existence, and who is insatiable in sexual passions. Let the silent sage move about in the village, as the bee goes, taking honey from the flower without harming colour or fragrance. One should pay no heed to the fault of others, what they have done or not done. Rather, one should consider the things that one has oneself done and not done. Like a beautiful flower, brightly coloured but without scent, even so useless is the well-uttered speech of one who does not act accordingly. Like a beautiful flower, brightly coloured and scented, even so useful is the well-uttered speech of one who acts accordingly. As many garlands are made from a heap of flowers, so one who is mortal born should perform many ethically skillful deeds. The fragrance of flowers, of sandalwood, of aromatic resin or jasmine, does not go against the wind, whereas the fragrance of the good does go against the wind. Sandalwood or aromatic resin, blue lotus or wild jasmine. Of all these kinds of fragrance, the odour of virtue is unsurpassed. Insignificant in comparison is this fragrance of aromatic resin and sandalwood. The fragrance of virtue it is that glows amongst the gods of the highest. Mara does not find the path of those who are virtuous, who live mindfully, and who are freed from perfect knowledge, samadhana. As pink lotuses, sweet-scented and lovely, spring from a heap of rubbish thrown in the highway, so among those who have become as rubbish, among ignorant, ordinary people, the disciple of the perfectly enlightened one shines forth exceedingly in wisdom. Over to Georgina.
The spiritually immature. Long is the night to the wakeful, long the league to one who is exhausted with travel. Long is the process of faring through repeated existences to those spiritually immature ones who do not know the real truth, Sadhama. If he who goes about in search of truth does not find one better than, or at least similar to himself, let him firmly lead a solitary life. There is no companionship for him with the spiritually immature. The spiritually immature person vexes himself, thinking, sons are mine, riches are mine. He himself is not his own. Even, how then sons? How then riches? The spiritually immature person who recognizes his immaturity is to the extent mature. The spiritually immature one who thinks of himself as mature is termed immature indeed. Though throughout his life a spiritually immature person attends upon or honours one who is spiritually mature, he does not necessarily know the truth any more than the spoon knows the taste of the soup. If for a moment a wise man attends upon one who is spiritually mature, he quickly perceives the truth, as the tongue at once detects the taste of the soup. Of evil understanding, the spiritually immature live as enemies to themselves, committing sinful deeds, the consequences of which are bitter. That deed is not well done, which, being done, one repents, and the result of which one suffers with tearful face and lamentations. That deed is well done, which, being done, one does not repent, and the result of which one receives gladly. So long as it has not ripened, the spiritually immature one thinks sin is sweet as honey, but when sin does ripen, then the spiritually immature one suffers a downfall. Month after month, a spiritually immature person may eat his food with the tip of a blade of sacred chrysograss, yet his worth is not a fraction, not a 16th part of those who have ascertained the truth. Unlike milk, which curdles immediately, the sin that has been committed does not at once bear fruit. Instead, it pursues the spiritually immature person like a fire covered with ashes, burning him only after a time. The spiritually immature person wins theoretical religious knowledge only to his own disadvantage. It destroys his better nature while splitting his head. One who is spiritually immature desires a false reputation, honour among fellow almsmen, authority over monastic settlements, and respect from the families living round about. Let both those householders and those who have gone forth from the household life approve what I have done. Let them be subject to me in all undertakings, great and small, such as the wish of the spiritually immature, as a result of which his craving and conceit increase. One thing is that which leads to worldly gain, quite another the way that leads to nirvana. Thus comprehending, let the almsman, the disciple of the Buddha, take no delight in respectful greetings, but devote himself to solitude. Back to the Nokchija.
To 6, the spiritually mature. Should one see a man of understanding who, as if indicating a buried treasure, points out faults and administers reproof, let one associate with such a spiritually mature person. To associate with one like this is good, not evil. Let him instruct, let him advise, let him restrain one from uncivilized behavior, and the result will be that he will be dear to the good and detestable to the bad. The spiritually mature do not associate with evil friends, do not associate with low fellows, associate with spiritual friends, associate with superior men. Purushottamas. One who has imbibed the truth lives happily with well-seeing mind. The spiritually mature person delights in the truth made known by the noble Aryas. Irrigators draw off waters, fletchers straighten arrows, carpenters shape wood. The spiritually mature discipline themselves. As a solid rock cannot be shaken by the wind, so the spiritually mature person is unmoved by praise or blame. Hearing the teachings of the Buddha, the spiritually mature become clear or calm, like a deep lake suddenly becoming clear or undisturbed. True men give up everything. The righteous do not speak wishing for sensuous pleasures. Touched now by pleasure, now by pain, the spiritually mature show neither elation nor depression. Not for one's own sake, nor for the sake of others, should one desire sons, wealth, or territory. One should not desire success for oneself by unrighteous means. He who behaves in such a way is virtuous, is wise, is righteous. Few among men are those who go to the further shore. The other ordinary people chase up and down this shore. Those people who conform themselves to the well-explained truth of things and who are desirous of reaching the further shore will pass over the realm of death, so difficult to transcend. Forsaking dark ways, the spiritually mature person cultivates the bright. Coming home to the homeless life, he abides in solitude, which is hard to enjoy. Giving up delight in sensuous pleasures, a spiritually mature person, the man of no possessions, should purify himself from all mental defilements. They whose minds have cultivated to perfection the factors of enlightenment, and who, free from clinging, delight in the giving up of attachment, those bias-free, radiant ones become cool, nibbutta, even in this world, in this life. Over to Louise.
Chapter 7, The Supremely Worthy. The burning fever of passion does not exist for one who has finished his journey, i.e. completed his spiritual evolution, who is free from sorrow, wholly emancipated and released from all the bonds of conditionality. The mindful who leave home do not delight an abode. Like wild geese quitting a lake, they abandon whatever security they have. Those who do not accumulate material or mental possessions, who thoroughly understand the true nature of the food they eat and whose range of experience, pasture, is liberation through the realization of the empty, sunya, and unconditioned animita. Their path, like that of birds in the sky, is difficult to trace. He whose impurities are extinct, who is not attached to food, and whose range of experience, pasture, is liberation through the realization of the empty, sunya, and unconditioned animita. His path, like that of birds in the sky, is difficult to trace. He whose senses are pacified like horses well controlled by the charioteer, who has eradicated conceit and who is free from impurities, the very gods love a man of such good qualities as these. Like the earth, he offers no opposition. Like the main pillar of a city gate, he stands firm. He is pure, like a lake free from mud. For a man of such good qualities as these, there are no more wanderings from life to life. Tranquil is the thought, tranquil the word and deed of that supremely tranquil person who is emancipated through perfect knowledge. He is a superior man, Uta Mapariso, who does not merely believe, but who knows the unmade, who has severed all links with conditioned existence, put an end to the occasions of good and evil, and who has renounced, vomited up all worldly hopes. Whether village or forest, plain or hill, delightful is that spot where the supremely worthy dwell. Delightful are the forests where ordinary people find no pleasure. Those who are free from passion delight in them, for they do not go in quest of sensuous enjoyment. Over to Lethan.
The thousands. Better than a thousand meaningless verses collected together in the Vedic oral tradition is one meaningful line of verse on hearing which one becomes tranquil. Though one should recite 100 Vedic verses without meaning, better is one line or a single word of Dharma and hearing which one becomes tranquil. Though one should conquer in battle thousands upon thousands of men, yet he who conquers himself is truly the greatest in battle. It is indeed better to conquer oneself than to conquer other people. Of a man who has subdued himself and who lives self-controlled, neither a god nor a celestial musician, Gandhava, nor Mara together with Brahma can undo the victory of a person who is subdued and controlled like that. If month after month for 100 years one should offer sacrifices by the thousand, and if for a single moment one should venerate a spiritually developed person, better is that act of veneration than the 100 years of sacrifices. Though one should tend the sacred fire in the forest for 100 years, yet if he venerates a spiritually developed person even for a moment, better is that act of veneration than the 100 years spent tending the sacred fire. Whatever obligations and sacrifices one might offer here on earth in the course of the whole Vedic religious year, seeking to gain merit thereby, all that is not a quarter as meritorious as paying respect to those who live uprightly, which is indeed excellent. For him who is of a reverential disposition, constantly respecting his elders, 4 things constantly increase: life, beauty, happiness, and strength. Though one should live 100 years, an ethical and an integrated asamita, that is one single day lived ethically and absorbed in high meditative states. Though one should live 100 years of evil understanding and unintegrated, better is one single day lived possessed of wisdom and absorbed in a higher meditative states. Better than 100 years lived lazily and with inferior energy is one single day lived with energy aroused and fortified. Better than 100 years lived unaware of the rise and fall of conditioned things is one single day lived aware of the rise and fall of conditioned things. Better than 100 years lived unaware of the deathless state is one single day lived aware of the deathless state. Better than 100 years lived unaware of the supreme truth, Dharman Uttaman, is one single day lived aware of the supreme truth. Now over to Heather.
Okay, chapter 9, evil. Be quick to do what is morally beautiful. Restrain the mind from evil. He who is sluggish in doing good, his mind delights in evil. Should a man once do evil, let him not make a habit of it. Let him not set his heart on it. Painful is the heaping up of evil. Should a man once do good, let him make a habit of it. Let him set his heart on it. Happy is the heaping up of good. As long as it bears no fruit, so long the evildoer sees the evil he has done as good. When it bears fruit in the form of suffering, he recognizes it as evil. As long as it bears no fruit, so long the good man sees the good he has done as evil. When it bears fruit in the form of happiness, then he recognizes it as good. Do not underestimate evil, thinking it will not approach me. A water pot becomes full by the constant falling of drops of water. Similarly, the spiritually immature person, little by little, fills himself with evil. Do not underestimate good, thinking it will not approach him. The water pot becomes full by the constant falling of drops of water. Similarly, the wise man, little by little, fills himself with good. As a merchant travelling with a small caravan and much wealth avoids a dangerous road, or as one desirous of life shuns poison, so should one keep clear of evil. If one has no wound in one's hand, one may safely handle poison. The unwounded hand is not affected by poison. Similarly, no evil befalls him who does no wrong. Whoever offends against an innocent man, one who is pure and faultless, to that spiritually immature person, the evil he has committed comes back like fine dust thrown against the wind. Some beings arise by their conception in the womb. Evildoers are born in a state of woe. Those who do good go to heaven. Those who are free from defilements become utterly cool. Not in the sky, nor in the midst of the sea, nor yet in the clefts of mountains. Nowhere in the world, in fact, is there any place to be found where, having entered, one can abide free from the consequences of one's evil deeds. Not in the sky, not in the midst of the sea, nor in the clefts of the mountains. Nowhere in the world, in fact, is there any place to be found where, having entered, one will not be overcome by death. Over to Georgina.
Thank you. Punishment. All living beings are terrified of punishment, danda. All fear death, making comparison of others with oneself. One should neither kill nor cause to kill. All living beings are terrified of punishment, danda. To all, life is dear, making comparison of others with oneself. One should neither kill nor cause to kill. Whoever torments with the stick, danda, creatures desirous of happiness, he himself thereafter, seeking happiness, will not obtain happiness. Whoever does not torment with the stick, danda, creatures desirous of happiness, he himself thereafter, seeking happiness, will obtain happiness. Do not speak roughly to anyone. Those thus spoken to will answer back. Painful indeed is angry talk, as a result of which one will experience retribution. If you can silence yourself like a shattered metal plate, you have already attained nirvana. No anger is found in you. As a cowherd drives cows out to pasture with a stick, so do old age and death drive the life out of living beings. A spiritually immature person performs evil deeds, not realizing their true nature. By his own actions is the man of evil understanding tormented, burned as though consumed by fire. Whoever inflicts punishment on the innocent, or who offends against the unoffending, he speedily falls into one of the 10 states. He meets either with intense physical pain or material loss, or bodily injury or serious illness, or mental derangement. Or he meets with trouble from the government, or a serious accusation, or bereavement, or loss of wealth. Or else his houses are consumed by fire, while on the dissolution of the body that man of evil understanding is reborn in a state of woe. Not going about naked, not the wearing of matted locks, not abstention from food, not sleeping on the bare ground, not smearing the body with dust and ashes, nor yet the practice of squatting on the balls of the feet can purify a mortal who has not overcome his doubts. If one who is richly adorned lives in tranquility, is calm, controlled, assured of eventual enlightenment, and devotes himself to the spiritual life, laying down the stick with regard to all living beings, then despite his being richly adorned, he is a Brahmana, he is an ascetic, he is an almsman. In the whole world there is a man to be found who,